I know you guys can hear that. Hey guys, welcome to another live She Knows Arsenal, the final transfer update. Thank the Lord. So glad this transfer window is now done. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Final transfer update because our window is done. That's what's coming out from the club. If you guys did not know, Arsenal have brought in Bournemouth goalkeeper Neto on a season-long loan. We could not agree the fee for Juan Garcia, which, we should have never been trying to spend, whatever it was. I think we offered like 16 million pounds for a backup goalkeeper. That never made sense anyway. So that deal fell through. So we went ahead and brought in Neto. Now the complication with Neto is that he captained Bournemouth in their first Carabao Cup match, and now is cup tied. So we bought a backup goalkeeper that can't even play in the Carabao Cup. So that is Arsenal, in a nutshell. And before anybody says, oh my God, you're being negative, that's just the truth though. The truth is that we bought in a goalkeeper that can't even play in the competitions that he's meant to play in. So yeah, but that's just kind of what we're about, I guess. So yeah, we brought in Neto instead of Juan Garcia. And I think the only other thing that we're waiting on is Nketiah to be announced for Palace. He did his medical, but he hasn't been announced yet, which doesn't mean anything. Like, he'll probably get announced like soon. And so that concludes Arsenal's transfer business. Earlier on today, there were rumors of Arsenal looking at Coman, looking at Sterling, and Arsenal have decided that they're okay with or relaxed about the options that they have. And so we will go into the season with the team that we had last season, minus a couple, plus a couple. So we'll kind of talk about that. I feel like my overall feeling on this, though, you guys, is, you kind of made your bed, so win a trophy in it. In the end of the day, Arsenal are making, like, the transfer window is not happening to Arsenal. The Arsenal are making decisions or, to create this team. So they're not being like, nothing is happening to them. I feel like we speak about the window as if it's like this thing that's happening and we don't have any control over it. We actively make, decisions not to go for players or to go for certain players. So they've created this squad for this season. They've decided that this squad is good enough to win a trophy. So make sure you do that. We are in win now mode. We're no longer rebuilding. And so I expect Arsenal to win a trophy this season, so, there's not really much else to say. I know people are feeling like the window, why are people complaining about the window? I don't need to explain why the window is underwhelming anymore. I feel like anybody that's pretending that it's not is just being disingenuous at this point. Some of the most positive of positive Gooners I've seen today are absolutely livid with the lack of business at the end of the window. And so I think, there's no, I don't need to explain why it's underwhelming anymore. It just is, so go win a trophy, with what you have, with what you decided that was good enough for the season. Make sure you win something. And that's just it. Arteta saying that we were short, the Athletic coming out and saying that we felt like we needed X factor after we went out of the Champions League to Bayern. It's honestly, they said that the window, what we needed, we're short in attack. We don't have X factor. And that's the one thing that they didn't address. And they haven't addressed it in 2 windows. In fact, Arsenal have only spent 60 something million on attacking players. Since Arteta's been in charge, we spent 40 something million on Gabriel Jesus and 20 something million on Trossard. We haven't had that big game changing attacking signing, and we've pushed it down. We kick the can down the road again, so this is their, as far as I'm concerned, this is their squad. This is their mess. And so they should just make sure that they win a trophy. No, I don't think anybody's going to be interested in hearing that we were unlucky with injuries. I don't think anybody's going to be interested in hearing that we just, things just didn't go our way. You have actively made decisions to go into the season with a squad that has a very suspect group of attackers that we're meant to rely upon for a very long season. There's more games than last season. There's more pressure on this season. So again, like I said, this is your bed, lie in it, win a trophy in it. I don't know what to tell you. Aman says, hey, Jess, hello to you as well. Mackie says, same PR every single time. It's always we're saving money for an attacker in January, and then it's no club will sell in January. And then from February 1st, we start hearing about how we'll go big in the summer. I don't know what to tell you. We just needed to buy an attacker. It just wasn't, we just needed to buy an attacker, and that's just it. I have no idea why Gunner Blog is doing this now. They're still trying to tease that we may do something. People are saying as we stand, as things stand, but we know that window is going to shut and nobody's coming in. Let's be fucking for real. So I don't see how we do anything from here on out. I would love for us to do something, but I don't believe, so sorry. They just are continuing just to prolong the damage. Just go ahead and say that the window is shut for us. It always happens the same every single window. We miss out on one major thing. We know we needed an attacker. We know that. So, yeah, Chosen One says Saka literally asking who they're going to sign, crazy stuff. I mean, I would imagine that, Saka has probably spoken to Sterling. I do think that we sounded out something for Sterling, and I would not be surprised if Sterling and Saka had some dialogue, and Saka thinks that maybe we are going to sign Sterling, because it's well documented that we we were interested in maybe bringing him in, but Saka, bless his little heart, probably has no clue that we've already been briefed that nothing is happening. So yeah. Mackie says City add an attacker every year despite being as dominant as they are because they understand that you need to keep the attack fresh. It's just the one thing that I feel like we never really look at. And I just wonder like why that is. Like, why is it the case that is like the one position that why is that the one position that I feel like we're just so blind on? I don't get it. Now there's a lot of pressure on, Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli to get back to their 2022-2023 form. Because what I'm sure Arsenal are saying to themselves is, well, if Havertz plays number 9 for the entire season, he'll definitely get those 20 goals, and if we could just get, it's so likely that Martinelli and Jesus are going to get back to that 2022-2023 form, and we're just going to be great, but as an Arsenal fan, to me, our history is really, especially in the Emirates era, is based upon the worst case scenario always kind of happening. And it's already happening. Merino is already injured. How do we get these players that are never injured? Merino has played 40 plus matches every season. Basically, he's been at Sociedad, and he comes to us, and in his first ever training session, he gets a shoulder injury, and they're talking about it's a fractured shoulder. If that is true, he's going to be out for more than just a few weeks. He's going to be out for a couple of months. So, this is the player that's meant to come in and unlock Martinelli. So Jesus is already injured in the season where he was more physically fit than he's ever been. He has fire in his belly, already injured, not going to play against Brighton. Marino comes in, supposed to unlock Martinelli, already injured. So we're going to be running Rice and Martinelli down that wing. It's just, we're a worst case scenario type of club. We get very little luck, so with these types of things. And I feel like the club always runs on this worst case or best case scenario thing. And they really should start thinking worst case scenario. If Jesus doesn't get back to that form, if Martinelli doesn't get back to that form, if we get a couple of injuries, what do we look like? And then operate off of that, because this is the second season in a row that we bought a player and, they've gotten serious injury like day one. Like that's freaking, like that is so crazy to me, and no, like it's not their fault that they got these injuries. Like I'm not looking at Merino like, oh my God, we bought this injury prone guy. He quite literally has never been injured in his whole career, comes to us, boom, injured, so we just have really, really bad luck. And so I don't understand why we leave it up to, fate. Sometimes you just have to almost overdo it so that you're not in this position. We are always kind of 1 or 2 injuries away from complete catastrophe. So yeah. It is what it is, and all I'm saying is you made your bed. Now win something. That's it. As much as people are trying to make it seem like you're panicking, you're being negative, you're overdoing it. It's in the end of the day, I'm just saying when we get to the end of the season, if we haven't won anything, don't talk to me about anything. Bex? Hold on, this dog is crazy. Beckham? No. Absolutely not. No. He went outside and got these. I don't know. Can you guys see this? He got outside and he took my predators. Like, he's so annoying. He's been trying to chew these up for weeks. And I put them in a place where I didn't think he could get them. He still got them. Absolutely not. I knew you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. Ridiculous. I love him so much. So yeah, that's can Beckham play on the wing? I wish he could. But that's all I'm saying. It's every single season, the same thing happens. People bring up concerns or like people pretend as though we weren't told we were going to get certain things. Then when we don't get them and people complain, you're panicking, you're being negative, you're doing this, then we don't win anything. And they're blaming, then they're like, but we got unlucky, but this, but that, but we went toe to toe. So there's like this never ending, like constant, like you're never allowed to be upset. And we haven't won a major trophy in 20 years and we haven't won anything in 4. And people are pretending as though it's not concerning, that we're not getting the players that we should be getting at this stage. Do you know what I mean? And that we were told that we were going to get. If at the beginning of the window, they said that they weren't going to even look at an attacker, I could kind of see that a little bit more, then I'd be like, okay, well, now we have to ask questions why we're not, but nobody said we were going to get them. So, but yeah, it's just like, hello. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm just tired of it now. Like, you can call me negative Leon Gunner all you want. It doesn't hurt my feelings. At the end of the day, we quite literally are leaving ourselves in a position where we're like 1 or 2 injuries away from being cooked. I looked at our season, the amount of games that we're going to be playing, especially with the new Champions League. It's tough. We're leaving ourselves really, really thin, so yeah, I just feel like, I can't say certain things because I don't want this video to get taken down, but you can literally just like, I don't know, I'm not even going to say it, but anybody who's like, negative, make sure you come back here if we don't win anything. Okay. Because it's just, come on, I'm tired of it. Like, you guys can just shut the fuck up now. Pixel says, then Arteta will complain of a thin squad. Aman says, compare our attacking depth to City and Liverpool, even Chelsea. It's so laughable. I actually saved the tweet. God, I hate Twitter because it's such like a porn farm. So I hate showing it. Twitter sometimes because I'm just afraid there's going to be some like ass cheeks or something like that on the screen, but I think we're safe here. Okay, here we go. Y'all see that? Let me click on it more. No, I think that's as big as I can make it. Hopefully you guys can see it, but if you guys can't, I'll read it to you. So basically this person is saying you're asking for an attack of Saka, Nelly, Trossard, Reece, Havertz, and Jesus to compete with these two. And this is kind of what I've been saying from the very beginning about our attack versus our defense. People heavily weight our good squad towards like everything. Like, they act like it's all even. Like, we have a great squad all the way across. We don't. It's more like this. It's, or actually more like this. The defense is doing a lot of it's like actually like the good part. And then the attack is not as good as the defense. But our defense carries us so much that we almost like give everybody the credit, when in reality, there's more times where our defense saves our attack than vice versa. If our attack does not play, or our defense does not play well, it's very rare that our attack just saves their asses and just scores a bunch of goals and makes it like a non-factor. Like, we quite literally have to keep clean sheets. It's not the same. Our defensive depth is best in the league, in my opinion. I think we have the best defense. I think we have the best defensive depth. But as you get further forward, especially in the attacking mid and forward positions, we are just nowhere near the likes of Liverpool and City. We're just not, So and call it negative if you want, but I'm just looking at it like it's not good enough. It's not enough. It wasn't enough last season. It won't be enough this season. So, I don't think anybody would leave their attack to a space where like your most reliable players are Saka, Trossard, and Havertz. Havertz is a player that, is great to have in the team, that you can rely upon as like your all-arounder forward. But like in reality, any other serious team would have a gunman behind him. We don't. We have Jesus behind him. We have Reece Nelson in the squad. He's kind of like he's not going to add much to the group. And then we have a big question mark in Martinelli, who needs to be unlocked by a player that's injured already. So I get why people are frustrated. There's no reason not to be frustrated. And, to be honest, for everybody that's, like, oh, you're being so negative, why are you guys always moaning? It's until we start winning trophies, people will always be complaining. And so you should be more concerned about, if you want to stop the complaining, you want the complaining to stop, you should want us to win trophies, because that's the only thing that is going to stop Arsenal fans from complaining. That's it. We're tired of losing. I'm tired of losing. I really am. I'm tired of losing, and I'm tired of going through multiple seasons and being really close and then having a transfer window and not addressing the one thing that would probably get us closer. Every rival that I've spoken to, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, have all said that they expected us to get a striker, because it's the most obvious thing that we haven't done. And it's probably the biggest, glaring thing in our squad. Football is very simple. I think obviously defense wins you trophies. We know that, defense wins you championships, but it's in conjunction with a very deadly attack, and I don't think we have a deadly attack. I think we have a good attack that, when everything is going well, scores lots of goals. You know what I mean? But when we don't have when our patterns are not working and they're being asked to create moments of magic, they come up short, and I've lived long enough to watch Arsenal and what a team looks like when they're definitely going to win trophies. And I've also seen teams that have been really, really close, and we always tend not to go for the one thing that would help us get over the line. In the past, it's been a striker. In the past, it's also been competent center backs. In the past, it's been a DM. There's literally always one thing, one or two things that have been within our reach, but there's always a reason why we can't get them. But everybody else around us seems to be able to figure it out, So I've seen this from Arsenal before. I've seen us be close and just not do the one thing, or at least even if we can win with this group, at least just I want to see Arsenal almost do too much once, just one time, instead of doing barely enough or not enough, do more than enough once and see if that helps us out. It seems like we always want to do even just enough or not enough, but never more than enough. And it would have been so nice this summer if they had just did the one, instead of getting a left back, even though I wanted to get, a left back in, maybe instead of doing that, say, you know what, we decided not to get a left back because we wanted to make sure we got a winger and a striker, get both, just once, but we kind of always do the just enough or not, so yeah, that's kind of, where I think the frustration comes in. And so until we start winning trophies, it'll always kind of be there. And again, there it is. As far as I know, Arsenal's incoming business is done. I kind of could have told you that, though. I knew it, that when I did the deadline day stream today, that nobody would be coming in. Arsenal are very predictable. These are windows that we've seen in the past. We're always waiting on deadline day. So for something to happen. And now we fail to get something, and then we get a massive injury, which is starting to really that Merino injury has taken the wind right out of my sails. It's so tough. I like Merino. I think he was definitely going to change. I would have loved to have seen him against Brighton just to get something different. I feel like we're looking at the exact same team and we know the limitations of this team. It would have been nice to see Merino, but, and they're saying weeks. I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was longer than that. Kippy says, where did the Sesko money go? I don't know. I feel like it was a pump fake. I I don't think we ever had as much money as they claim that we did. And whatever we had, we spent it on a left back first. And then everything else was catch up from there. Like I don't know where the money went. I really don't. So yeah, 6 months. That's what I don't know if it's 6 months or not. I just, a shoulder injury, from what I know, it's more like months than weeks, unless it's like a very small fracture. But when Arteta says weeks, like I've seen him say that for like Tomiyasu, and then Tomiyasu just never comes back. So it's just tough. Top Shotta says this wasn't a hard window to navigate. Mid, winger, striker. Even if you wanted to target Isak next summer, you find a loan deal to carry you over. Now Merino news. This is so Arsenal. It is. It's I think that's the thing too. It's just like the same thing over and over again. This feels like a redo of last season's window. Only at least last season's window, we actually bought we at least bought Rice. I was very underwhelmed by the Havertz signing. You guys know that, but I was like, at least we got Rice in. But yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know. Cannon says the number of times Havertz keeps falling during a match is astonishing. The guy falls more than scores. I think Havertz is doing just about as good as he could. I think Havertz is doing as good as he can. I think he's kind of always going to be a player that misses chances. He's not clinical. He works hard for the team, and I know Arteta really likes that. He's reliable in terms of his fitness, which is good for us because we don't always have players that are reliable fitness-wise. And so I think Havertz is one of those types of players where he's not going to change and be somebody completely different. He's going to be pretty much what he's been, but Arteta can tweak little things here and there to make him, marginally better here and there. But ultimately, he's never going to be the striker that Arsenal probably need to really compete against the biggest clubs, consistently. And so for the Havertz thing, for me, is always about whether or not we needed this signing and whether or not it solved any of our problems versus, do I think he's a good player? Does he help us? Yes, he does. But it's just really difficult to have two strikers that aren't clinical, one of which that's never fit enough. And just looking at Havertz and being like, are you going to be our everything? So I like Havertz. I like Havertz. He's just not enough, Jordan says Saka and Odegaard and these players should leave. This club is a joke. I don't want them to leave. I do think that at a certain stage, though, players will, if we don't win, you know how it goes. We've been here before with Arsenal. When we don't perform and players have ambition, they leave. So as much as people want to believe that these players are different and they love the club, they'll leave just like everybody else does. So it's important to actually win trophies, and that's why, I think that's where a lot more of the frustration comes from. I don't think we all handle it well. I don't think, there's always like some people don't like the way it's expressed, and I understand that, but I can't really blame people because I am personally afraid that we're going to lose some of our better players, Saka and Saliba in particular. It won't be too long before other teams catch up, pass us, and then they start asking for our players. So, and we know that because we've been through it before. And so really just need Arsenal to start to win trophies. And the only way to win trophies is to improve the team and be aggressive about winning. And we're never aggressive. We're kind of okay. We're okay. We play it safe. And people say it's the smart way to be, and we're running the business right. But I think I'd love Arsenal to be aggressive just once in their lives, just one time, go overboard. One time, don't let Reece Nelson stop you from bringing in the attacker that you need. Don't let Jesus be the reason why you don't get a striker, just for once, and we know we can be ruthless because we're ruthless with Ramsdale. But when it comes to certain positions, we're very like, just, it's fine. And, it's just disappointing because usually the teams that win are aggressive. Says, this is KSC though. Look at the Rams, the Nuggets. Once they won, KSC, no more spend. The ownership is also questionable. But we haven't even won anything. But I do think they gave a lot of money early on without any sort of return for it. And so I understand why this summer we went into it without getting like a bunch of money forward, but without sales. But we see how hard it is for Edu and Arteta to operate without just cash being thrown at them. They almost could not maneuver at all in the window. They brought in, and they were just so obsessed with goalkeepers. It was actually sickening. But they made Raya permanent. They brought in Calafiori. They got Merino, and they fell short on an attacker. And it might have been the case that we had to put the money down for Raya, so that took away from some of the money that we had. We had to sell Emile to get Calafiori. We had to sell Nketiah to get Merino. And then there was just like nothing left. And that's why they only wanted to do a loan. It's tough. I don't really blame KSC for not giving more money without any return in trophies and or sales. But equally, I do think it's time to start asking questions about like, okay, so how are we going to go to the next level? And are the people that are in charge able to get us to the next level? Because it's not just going to happen. Like, we have to progress. I think we've kind of stagnated a little bit. So, maybe it's not so much about just the money. It's about who's actually handling the money. Brendan says, not even that. Let's not even talk about spending crazy money. Why can't they find a gem from somewhere? Like, none of their gems have worked out. Yeah, when you buy Fabio Vieira, Sambi, Tavares, and Marquinhos, none of them work out. And those were supposed to be your like undercover gems. That's questionable for sure. And I think that's why I was saying that I don't actually think it would be that bad of an idea to get like, it would be hard to convince him, but a Bakayoko or an Adingra or somebody like that, because you genuinely have Reece Nelson, and Reece Nelson is not better than those two players. So you could have brought in somebody that, needed maybe a little bit of development, not a lot, but some development, and let them kind of like grow into the team. That would have been better than nothing, but they just went with nothing. It was like, they were like, okay, if we can't get Sesko, who was documented as a market opportunity, so not even like a number one target, he was a market opportunity. We couldn't get him, and we couldn't get Nico Williams, which when the window opened, I could have told you we weren't getting Nico Williams. I could have told you that. Barcelona interested. We're not the type of team that's going to pay over the odds or be able to convince a player like Nico Williams to turn down Barcelona. I could have told you we weren't going to get him. So we could have turned our attention from him way before and still went out and got somebody. But if that's what was our plan, it is what it is. Like I said, you made your bed, win a trophy. Paul Williams says, what do you think the score will be? I think 3-1 Arsenal. If you're talking about tomorrow, 3-0, 3-1, something like that. Hopefully. Let me read some of these super chats. Aichawa says, if we could cancel Eddie deal, would you? No. Still sell. I hope he gets announced. He's not going to help us anyway. So just having him just for the sake of it. And I don't want Arteta to even have the option to use him, because if he has to choose between playing Trossard at false 9 and playing Nketiah at the 9, I want him to have to play Trossard. I think it's ridiculous that there was ever times where Eddie started over Trossard, period. So if we need to go down the ranks for a number 9, play Trossard. Fuck it. If we need to play Jesus on left wing, and we need to play somebody else right wing because of Saka or something like that, play one area. I really don't care. I really don't want to see Nketiah or Reece Nelson playing, because I just feel like neither of them add anything. so I'd rather them be out the squad, altogether. Internal solutions, whatever. Cal says, as a newer fan, that would be as a newer fan, the wood is fresh, heartbreaking. I mean, I was talking to a friend earlier and she was basically saying that she was checking out. And I was like, I think she's going through her first Arsenal disassociation, because she's like not a newer fan, but she's been at least following Arsenal for 10 years. And I've been through one Arsenal disassociation where I just obviously still a fan and all that kind of stuff, but I just don't I was very apathetic. And so I would just kind of check the scores and see if we won or not. And then if we won, I would actually watch it. I feel like that was like around the Mustafi type of like that era. I just was like, this is just not Arsenal. I can't be asked. It was just crazy. And so I think it sucks to hear people going through like their first like, oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed in Arsenal, but I'm used to it, so, it is what it is. But yeah, it would just be nice to see Arsenal just prove us wrong once, but they don't. Brandon B. Talking says, if I'm Saliba, Saka, Rice, Odegaard, I'm looking for ambition of the club and taking note. This is regression. It's at the very least, it's stagnation. I think, again, from our first challenging season to the next, I feel like we're pretty much, we were better in some respects defensively, but I think we were marginally the same. We started off slower, but we had too many games where we lost. Defensively, we were better, but, attacking wise, I don't think we were as dynamic as the first year. So we were better statistically, but ultimately we got the same result, no trophies, so we stagnated. I think we got different, not better. This season, I think will be pretty much the same as we were last season, which, glass half fullers will say that, well, as long as we're as good as we were last season at the end, and we just play like that all the way through, we'll win the trophies. But football doesn't work like that. Other teams get better. You get different results and different, against different teams. We have more games than we did last season. We have more expectation on us, and injuries may not be so kind. I know it's difficult saying that we got lucky with injuries last season, but I do think to a certain extent, compared to other teams, we did. We were nowhere near as hard done by like we were like Manchester United or Newcastle or Chelsea. And so not only may those teams end up with better injury results, we may end up with worse ones. And so, it may not, Timber got injured, yes, and Thomas Partey got injured, but I think other teams would have taken that versus what they ended up getting. So football is not that simple. It's not linear like that, where it's as long as we play like we did in 2024, the entire season will win it. It doesn't work like that, so you have to improve the team year on year. And I think I don't know if we've regressed, but I do think that we're in danger of stagnating for 3 years in a row. We're just not taking those big leaps like I feel like we should be. And yeah, but the club acts as though we're at a place where it will be really difficult to get better from here. So we have to be really, really careful about who we bring in. Genuinely, you could have brought in a plethora of players in that front line and gotten better. So yeah, Brian says you can argue with his production, but I think the issue with Havertz is that he is a tweener. We still need a definitive striker. And I agree with that. I think no serious team would have Havertz as your only striker that you can rely upon. I think any serious team would have a gunman behind him. I think most teams that are in the top 10 have two really good striker options. We have one. No offense to Jesus, but he's not around enough to be considered a good option that you can rely upon. Brighton have at least two strikers that they can rely upon, and then they have a kid that they have cooking underneath in Ferguson, but we act like we're so afraid to get anybody in, so yeah, Havertz is not really like the problem, not him as a player. Like, he is going to get at least 15 goals this season, in my opinion. Like, he could get more than that, but there will be the game in the Champions League where he just cannot he cannot create anything, against like against Villa. Against Villa, Havertz was pretty much like, I mean, he did the teamy stuff, but he didn't have a shot, so it would be lovely to be able to bring a striker off of the bench that you can rely upon that's there solely to score goals, but we don't have that, so I like Havertz, it's just it was never enough, and it's still not enough, so yeah, Lone Star says sounds like doomsday. Like I don't care. I'm so sorry. I really don't. I know that it's like you guys want a positive spin on it. There is no positive spin on it. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I'm not saying we're going to lose every single game. I'm tired of saying the same things over and over again. There's nothing positive really to speak about in regards to our transfer window. When I did the preview for Brighton, I said that we would win it. So, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the window, so and it is doomsday if we don't win a trophy. It is. If we don't win a trophy, it is doomsday, so people need to get real at some point. That the longer we don't win trophies, the worse it's going to become. So if you don't want doomsday, well, hope that we win trophies. We need to win trophies to get this out. I don't know what to tell you. So it's so annoying. iGamer says, Jess, that's cap, nothing positive. I mean, we signed Calafiori, which was a position that was probably the least priority. Is he going to be the difference between us beating City or not? Is he going to be the difference between trophies or not? I don't know. Merino is injured, and we haven't won, or we haven't brought in an attacker. So there's our positives. So O'Malley says positive, we made money. So I don't know. I guess you guys tell me, is everybody just overreacting, or do people need to get real about our transfer window? Because every transfer window, it's the same thing. We miss out on key things, and people are going, I can't believe you're being so negative. Be real. Get real for 5 seconds. There's a reason why people are frustrated, and always discounting their feelings is ridiculous at this stage. Especially when every season we end up with no trophies. So, but yeah, Calafiori, he's going to be the difference between us winning and losing. That's for sure. We already had the best defense in the league. So he's a good signing. Don't get me wrong, but we know what we needed. It's like he was like 10% of what we needed. Merino was like 40%. The attacker was like 50%, and we didn't get that. So it's not really that hard to understand. But I feel like people are being intentionally obtuse because they want to live in La La Land forever. So Mills says, which striker do you want Arsenal to sign? Any striker. Just get a fucking striker. But we're not getting one. We went for Sesko and we couldn't get him. So we decided we're not getting anything. Yoga says, what do some Gooners not understand? We all want Arsenal to succeed. Some of us have concerns. They're not unfounded. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just gaslighting at this point. You guys are really, really good gaslighters. Why are you guys upset? There's no reason to be upset. We finished 2 points behind City. We're a Champions League team. What is there to be upset by? I cannot wait till we get to about November, because it's happening. We're going to get to November and people are going to be talking about that January transfer window like it's going to save our season. And we're not going to buy anybody in January. We never buy anybody in January. We rarely do. So I don't know why people are acting like it's fine. January, we'll get somebody then. But we'll come back to all these conversations again, because you guys are it's just gaslighting. It's ridiculous. Nobody would be upset if we were winning trophies or they felt confident that we would win them. Because we don't feel confident and we don't have a good track record of winning trophies under this manager, the anxiety is really, really high. So I don't know what to tell you. E. Ross says, I think you're spot on with everything. I don't know, but always being told that you're just being reactionary and stuff. It's just so long when we get to the end of each season and we don't win anything. It's just like, be fucking for real. Chosen One says, don't get me wrong, I still believe in Nelly. Just saying, if he doesn't get back to form this season, Kai's going to bag 20 Premier League goals and Saka's going to need to have over 40 goals to win trophies. I mean, no team is really out of this position, though. Like, every team, I feel like, is in a bad position if certain players do get injured. So, I don't want to act like, if City didn't have major injuries or Liverpool didn't have major injuries, that they wouldn't be in a bad position. I just think we're a little bit thinner in terms of our reliable options. If Saka were to get injured, then they would be. But Saka genuinely needs to have the best season of his life, like you said, and Kai needs to score those 20 goals if Nelly does not get back to his 2022-2023 form. And there's a lot riding on him getting there, and Merino was supposed to be the player to unlock that. So I just hope Arsenal have some sort of plan to rehabilitate Martinelli back to life, because we need him to perform. He needs to have a season like he did that season, and so does Jesus. And we didn't even expect Jesus to score goals that season. Because for Jesus, it's not even just like the goal scoring aspect of things. It's just he genuinely is a non-factor because he can't stay fit. So yeah, we're thin. We're very, very thin. O'Malley says, I wish we signed any fuck and body at this point, period. Like, just sign anyone. Or not anybody, but like, to act like we couldn't have signed anybody and we're just okay with what we have is disappointing. It just is. It cannot be understated. Boy says we cannot ride an Odegaard injury. We really can't. If Odegaard gets injured, it's yeah. Top Shotta says, in what would you significantly increase the number of games but decrease the squad numbers you'll compete with? Only Arsenal make it make sense. iGamer says, every time we face a team with a potent attack, we shit ourselves. Thinking about left back, yet addressing that position wasn't a priority. Seriously, it was the lowest priority. It was the lowest priority, and we all know it. Getting a left back was a priority, but getting a good attacker was always the main priority in this window. And the midfielder, a close second. I'm so sorry, but you cannot gaslight us into thinking that a left back was our most important thing. We needed one, but we could ride that better. A left back injury, like not getting a left back, we could deal with that a lot. But again, with Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Kivior rotating as our left back, we still had the best defense in the league, but we had nowhere near the best attack in the league. We didn't, so you can't gaslight it. Like, there's just no way to manipulate it. There's no way to manipulate it now. We needed an attacker and we didn't get one. And we're already Jesus short, so, and he's not even somebody that you can rely upon for goals. So hello, like, you can't, there's no way to manipulate it, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, last season, maybe, because we had bought Declan Rice and, we had at least spent a lot of money. So it was like a lot of money spent, good window. Yeah. But not this window. I'm so sorry, you guys. You just have to, you have to just allow people to be upset by it this time around. Like, this isn't the window for, I can't believe people are so upset. Paul Williams says, we are upset because second is no good to City and no trophies. If I was Pep right now, not only are City not really worried about us ever, really, if we're honest, we've never even pushed them to close to 100 points. They barely have to get 90 points to beat us to a league season, and they always know we're going to mess up at some point in the season. Not only are they not worried about us at all, really, they're probably looking out our window saying, wow, like, we really don't have to worry about them now. Liverpool know that they don't really have to worry about us either. They just have to play a little bit better than last season and be fine. Like, I'm telling you guys, like, being second to Pep for 2 seasons is not a trophy. Like, it's not a trophy. It's not something to be holding up, as some sort of badge of honor. 90 something goals is not a badge of honor. Toe to toe with Pep is not a trophy. We're in danger of, like, falling behind in a place where we were like well ahead of our contemporaries that were struggling, and they're going to catch us up. Like, they're going to catch us up, and we need to start winning now. That's all. We just need to start winning now. But not buying an attacker is not getting us any closer to where we want to be. So, yeah, I actually did a tweet of our actual squad, so we can look at it, because I think it's easier to see what we have when it's like actually written down. So yeah, here we go. All right, here. So hopefully you guys can kind of see it, but yeah, I think you guys can kind of see that, right? So basically the forwards are Martinelli, Havertz, Saka, Trossard, Jesus, and Nelson. By the way, Havertz is also the first guy up for left center mid backup if Rice cannot play there or Arteta decides to play, Rice at the 6. So Merino's injury means that Havertz is next man up for that, by the way. So Havertz is a forward, which we know he also is going to cover midfield. Martinelli, Havertz, Saka, Trossard, Jesus, Nelson, Merino, Rice, Odegaard, Waneri, Jorginho, and Partey, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, Calafiori, Tomiyasu, White, Zinchenko, Kiwi. Did I put Kiwior twice? No. White, Zinchenko, Kiwior, and Tierney. And goalkeepers are Raya, Neto, and Zedford. So people were saying put Heaven in there, put Miles Lewis-Skelly, but Kiwior staying means that Miles Lewis-Skelly is not going to be in the team, and neither is Heaven. Waneri is probably the only one that we'll see on a game day. So this is pretty much what we're going into the season with. And Tierney, Tomiyasu, Merino, and Jesus are injured. They said Tomiyasu is nowhere near coming back, which doesn't really matter. We have players to play in that position. Tierney, it doesn't matter either. The major concerns are, like I said, Merino means that if Arteta wants to play that other midfield combination and drop Rice to the 6, then Havertz is not going to play 9. Excuse me. But he won't be able to do that anyway because Jesus is injured. So, yeah, this is what we're kind of going with. So it's not like I'm not saying our team is shit. And I just feel like people go overboard all the time and are disingenuous about the concern that we have around the squad. Nobody is saying that this team is the worst team on the planet. Nobody is saying that this team is, going to finish in 8th. Nobody is saying that. But genuinely, I don't see much difference from last year's team to this year's team. And we're close to, catastrophe if we get one injury to Rice, Odegaard, or Saka. So we're, it's not looking that great. So I think it's okay to be disappointed with the window, but that doesn't mean that this team sucks. It doesn't. But I think our contemporaries will be closer to us than they were last season. Man United will be closer. Chelsea definitely will be closer. They're signing Osimhen and Sancho today, by the way. So on top of Neto, they're going to sign a striker and a midfielder, or a striker and a winger, which was meant to be the window that we were supposed to have. So Chelsea will close the gap quickly because talent closes the gap quicker than anything else. So is this good enough? Probably for top 4, yes. Is it closing the gap on City? No. So yeah. New Music says it's perfectly fine to be disappointed. I mean, I'm not asking for permission even to be disappointed. I just feel like you can't gaslight people 3 years in a row. You just can't, so this whole act, it's like a consistent act of what are you mad about is not working this time. So yeah, Neto is cup tied. So, and my whole thing is then again, you instantly throw one trophy, into question when you buy a goalkeeper, you loan in a goalkeeper who's cup tied. I like the fact that we're getting Neto instead of spending the money on that other guy, Juan Garcia, but equally, you know, he's cup tied. So that means that you have to decide whether you're going to play Raya or you're going to play Setford. Now, I remember when we were in the Carabao Cup early round against Brighton and Hine took us out of the Carabao Cup early round, 2 years ago. So I don't want to repeat that. So I wouldn't want to play Setford, but equally, I don't want to risk Raya, which we shouldn't have to. But because we made a song and dance of this whole goalkeeper situation, now you have to decide risk your number one or play an 18-year-old because we can't use the number 2 that we got, so, and we shouldn't be throwing domestic cups. So, the Carabao Cup is a legitimate chance for Arsenal to win a trophy. And it's, like, hello, we're lucky we have Bolton, but equally, I don't trust us because I've seen us lose to Nottingham Forest. Duddy Big says we have become Spurs under Poch. We become Arsenal under everything. Like, we become Arsenal of the Emirates era. This is who Arsenal is. We start a new project, we get really, really close, and then instead of just doing what we need to do, we take too long or we mess about, and then we end up having to sell our major players, then we have to start over, So it's not even Spurs under Poch. It's just what Arsenal have always been in the Emirates era. Like, this is always who we've been. Arsenal fans of a certain age, I do think, will be frustrated. Mode says we still get laughing. We'll still get laughed at if we win. I don't give a shit, Mode. I'll be honest. Like, I don't care. This whole throwing the domestic cups because we're too good for it, but then equally people don't have any standards in the Premier League. They feel like it's like you can't have it both ways. You can't be too good for the domestic cups, but then also think it's okay to not push for the Premier League really with our transfer business. You can't you can't have it both ways. I just don't understand how you could be so arrogant in discounting domestic cups, but equally always have an excuse for why it's okay not to win the Premier League. You can't have it both ways. If you're too good for the domestic cups, then you should be angry that we haven't gotten what we needed to win the Premier League, because that is the competition that you expect us to win. You can't not care about the domestic cups, but then not expect us to win the Premier League. You can't have it both ways. So, and it's not just the Carabao Cup. They have the same energy towards the FA Cup. They have the same energy towards the FA Cup. City never really turned their nose up to the Carabao Cup. They've won it more than anybody. They're not too good for it. So where do we get off being too good for it? It's arrogance. It's arrogance. Just win trophies. Everything is important. Every cup is important. How on earth can you be so arrogant to discount a domestic cup? Because you have the same energy towards the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. How can you be so arrogant but then not expect your team to win the Premier League? It doesn't make sense. And Bernie, City do not have 2 squads. They have 16 to 18 players that they really count on. It is a fallacy that they have 2 11s full of world-class players. It is a fallacy. It is a lie. It is something that Arsenal fans have told themselves to have copium around our team. City have 2 11s is the biggest lie that I've ever seen going around Arsenal Twitter. It is so not true. They have 16 to 18 top quality players. That is not 2 squads. We could have 16 to 18 top quality players if we took the finger out. If we took the finger out, we would have 16 to 18 players too. It is a fallacy that they have two teams. An absolute joke. Like, it's not true. Sorry. Oh, Brandon, I see your super chats. Thank you so much for throwing those in there. I'm only going to be on for like another 2 or 3 minutes, so I'm not going to have time to do like an extra person, but we can plan to do something later, maybe next week to wrap this up, because I need to go. So I only had like really an hour to talk, but thank you so much for your super chats. Yo-Yo says this team has a dog called win. I do love win though. We're losers. Most of the squad don't know what winning looks like. Arteta's only win was with Wenger, Mislintat, Raul players in empty stadiums. yeah, I just think, listen, at the end of the day, we'll see at the end of the season, if we don't win, what the excuses will be, because there will be excuses, for sure. We didn't have the team, we didn't have two squads, we didn't have enough attackers. It's fine. Didn't have luck of the draw, didn't have this, didn't have that. So all I'm saying is this team, you feel like it's good enough to win trophies. The Arsenal fans, they're behind it. They think it's great. Make sure you win trophies, because I just really don't think this club or a lot of the fans are going to be okay with another season of no trophies. So yeah, I just think you have to win something. You have to win something. You just do. Amina says, how long will the so-called project finally win a trophy? I don't know. I don't think people get how Arsenal, after this year, if we don't win anything, it's 5 years trophyless. That is not the Arsenal way. It's just not. Anton Dunn says it's irresponsible to have the squad in a season when the Champions League demands even more. Villa might do better at this rate. Base says you might be the only rival fan I've seen that calls out this BS narrative that City have 2 elite squads. Respect. I mean, it's I don't know who made that up, but it's not true. It's not true at all. So, and City having 2, even if City did have 2 squads, they're not stopping us from winning other trophies. Genuinely, I just feel like we have such low expectations, and we're kind of learning how to be to accept those low standards. I saw somebody say we shouldn't complain unless our team is rubbish, basically meaning you shouldn't complain unless we're about to get relegated. We are not Brighton. And the longer that this goes on, I feel like we're acting like Brighton, or we're acting like Spurs. We're acting like a club that it's just okay to be involved. And I don't feel like that's not me. That's not where I want to be at. But equally, we'll see. We must win a trophy. Everybody that's saying that we're overreacting, please make sure that you show up to streams if and when we do not win trophies. Please, don't hide. Don't pretend like you didn't say some of this stuff, because I'm going to be asking you guys the questions, because, yeah, I don't know. Terrence Tipp says, Fergie said defense wins you titles and attack wins you games. Fergie also never had a team with an attack as thin and lacking of quality as we do. So yes, defense, we have the type of defense that will win you titles, but we still don't have the attack that's of the required level. We just don't, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Newcastle are making a move for Anthony Elanga. I would keep an eye on Reece Nelson and Nottingham Forest if that happens. We have 5 hours until the window shuts. Nothing is happening with Reece Nelson. Be fucking for real. Nothing is happening. Yeah, I would bet a lot that nothing is going to happen. So, Jimmy, this is a complete overreaction. Make sure you're here if we don't win any trophies. Don't hide. It's always an overreaction until we get to November and people are asking for the January transfer window to come around for us to buy somebody to save us. So again, we've been through this before. I've been through this for three summer windows now. I've been through this where we have things that we didn't get done. People complain. Then they say, oh, it's an overreaction. Then we don't win anything and they have excuses for that. So, just make sure you're here if and when we don't win any trophies this season. Make sure you're here so I can ask you the hard questions, because, child, we have gotten to the point now where it's just like, bruh, you can't be on the hopium. You cannot be drinking the Kool-Aid this hard. You just can't, we have 5 hours left. Clubs are still doing business, but Arsenal are closed. It's nonsense. But you know what? Maybe Calafiori will be the difference. Yara says it's always an overreaction, and then they'll say, "Oh, next summer we'll fix it." I'm used to this. I'm used to it's an overreaction. I can't believe you're acting like this. You're just being negative for negative sake. You're toxic, blah blah blah. And then next summer they'll be, or actually in a couple of weeks they'll be, well, Arsenal are saying that they're saving up for 2025 for our big Isak signing, and then we don't get it. So, hello. I think we'll be okay. We can always buy in January. Know your club. Arsenal rarely buy in January because they never want to panic. If they didn't want to panic buy in the summer, why would they panic in January? The Chronicle says, I have a tough time thinking about Edu. I have a tough time thinking about how Edu can stay in a job now. I think the reason why I do feel like Edu and Arteta act the way that they do, and they're always so calm, is because they're not under any pressure for their job. So I think he's pretty comfortable. Dea says, remember we paid $3 million for Marquinhos to keep goodwill with Sao Paulo, but we're haggling over Eddie. Won't pay $1 million for Bentley. We have the money, but Edu is corrupt. Jimmy says, I have not been sitting in the Emirates during the end of I have been sitting in the Emirates during the Wenger era, though the Emery era was dismal football. When the atmosphere was horrendous, the club has come so far in the past few years. Have faith. I get this. I get this. Like, I'm not, like, this is so beyond the point. Like, this is so beyond the point of the window and winning trophies. We have come a long way, but we've come back to a point where we've been before, where we've been maybe a signing or two away from actually doing what we want to, and we don't get it over the line. Again, I said this yesterday, that I feel like there is a big section of this fan base that has been very comfortable in the period of us, the resurgence and the positivity, the new players coming in and getting us back to a competitive place. I think a lot of people are really confident in there. They're comfortable. That's where they want to stay, because once you get past that place, the conversation becomes not, have we gotten better? Are we close? Are we competing? It's, are we winning trophies? And I feel like that is the conversation that we're having now. We're no longer having the conversation of, we've come so far. We're beyond that now, so the questions are different. And that's why the temperature has been turned up just a little bit. And it feels like we're going back into the negative days, but it's until Arsenal start winning trophies, we're not going to be satisfied, because that's the remit. It's not to rebuild the club and sell well and have a most valuable squad and go toe-to-toe with City. It's winning trophies. So I understand all of this, but this is all like, it doesn't really matter anymore. The Wenger era, the toxicity of that, the Emery era, none of that matters. We're now in a win now era, and the quicker people get to that realization, the less confused they'll be about the negativity around the transfer window. This will be our third year trying to win the Premier League, so we're beyond that now. We're not in the top four thing anymore. It's not that anymore. And really, I feel like clubs that don't win trophies, that are meant to, have a level of toxicity within the fan base if they actually care about winning trophies. Otherwise, you're Brighton and you're just excited to sell well and be in and amongst the group, and it's fine, and that's no shade to Brighton. Like, I know I've used them as an example a couple of times, but it's no shade on Brighton. I think Brighton's a great club. Kamani says, what do these fake positive fans don't get is that we've seen this whole so close but so far movie play out again. Yeah, we have seen this before. Nico says, the truth is some people are just happy for the vibes. I agree. Raymond says, early in the stream, you asked why KSC won't for once do more than it needed. And you come to say again that you don't blame them for not releasing money for this transfer window. Yeah, no, it's two separate things. Like, I do want them to just do more once. I do want them to just do more once, but I also do understand that because that's not who they are. They don't want to just give money for the sake of it. And so it's just twofold. I wish that KSC were the kind of ownership that just threw money at the problem all the time. I do wish that they'd be like that every once in a while. And to a certain extent, they kind of done that, but they still always just fall a little bit short. But equally now, because I know that that's not who they are, operating within the reality of who KSC is, I understand why they haven't given just any old money to Edu anymore. So it's twofold. I wish our owners just threw money at the problem sometimes, but they don't. So they have to be realistic, and taking money away from Edu, I'm not surprised that they didn't do it. So it's twofold. It's definitely twofold there. Boy says KSC released the money Arteta and Edu needed to make sales last year. This is a really good point that boy is actually making here, is that, and this is why, there was a lot of frustration last summer, because we could have sold Reece Nelson and Kedia. We could have sold these players last summer. We waited until this summer, and we could have sold them the season prior. And so Edu didn't get any money to play around with this summer. They were really front loaded with a lot of money. And I think that's why, the conversations kind of always go back to the decisions that were made prior to this window. This window in isolation, getting a Merino, getting, Calafiori is not a train wreck, unless you think about all the money that we had to spend and how we got to a point where we can't do more. Those players are not bad players. Those players are definitely good for the squad. Like they're good for the squad. But the reason why we come to this place where that's all we can do is because of when we had the money just being thrown, and the Cronkies did just kind of give whatever they could. We didn't do enough to get where we needed to be. I think spending so much on left back, spending so much on goalkeepers, not buying an attacker has now brought us to this place where we're still buying goalkeepers, we're still buying left backs, and we can't buy an attacker. So it all led up to this place. And that's why I think every window there's a little bit of frustration, because it's just kicking the can down the road a little bit more, So I'm not saying that Merino and Calafiori are not great players and they won't help us, right? But I always question the last window because I thought the window was a huge misstep. As happy as I was with the Rice signing, 65 million on Kai Havertz still for me will always be a big question mark. No matter unless he can score these 20 goals a season and basically be a player that I don't think we think he'll ever be, it'll always be a questionable signing because he will not have solved the problem that we needed solved, because we still need a midfielder and we still need a striker. The summer prior, we spent money on Sambi, Tavares, not that much on Tavares, but Tomiyasu, we've had to replace Ramsdale really quickly. There's a lot of questionable signings in there that I do feel have led us to this place where now we don't have the money to spend when we actually really need it. So yeah, there's just some questions, and I don't feel like there's any problem with really asking about it. But listen, until we start winning trophies, there'll always be questions, and you can't stop it. So, the positivity gang, I know that this is probably a defense mechanism, because you don't want to go back into the dark days of Wenger out and stuff like that. But you're right around the corner from it. We win a couple of goals, or if we lose a couple of games, and we fall behind in the title race, we'll be pretty close to the dark ages again. So, I don't, yeah. So, yeah. Shahil says, we're going to Inter Milan with 17-year-old Wineri as midfield cover. Listen, this is, I was looking at those games and they're not terrible games. It's not a bad draw, but it's not easy, so yeah. The Arsenal perspective says, rationally, no one should be questioning why the check for you, Just Check book was closed this summer. That's on Edu and Arteta. Yeah, I mean, there are clubs that would, we've seen clubs like Chelsea and Man United continuously throw money at the problem over and over and over again, despite, making mistakes, but they just continue to spend money. And sometimes I wish that we would be aggressive like that sometimes too. It doesn't always work out, but we seem to always kind of stop a little bit short. That's all good and well and fine if you have a lot of, most of the signings that you make are perfect. But I think we have just too many misses in there to not continue to spend money and try to get to where we want to be, but listen, here we are. Mr. Tibb says, Mr. Happy, free Palestine, my brother. Mr. Happy says, when Ari is a baller, I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about him either, but I'm worried that Arteta won't use him. I think it's all good and well and fine for him to be in the squad, but he has to be used. And right now he's like a new signing, so while Merino is not able to play, Ari should be getting some minutes to get him on board, you know what I mean? So, to get him integrated and going, because he's our only midfield cover now in advanced positions. But I know what Arteta is going to do. He's going to use Havertz, but he really should be trying to use Ari. There's no point in having him in the squad if we don't use him. So he's like a new signing. Timber's like a new signing. Get these players going. Like I said, for the Brighton game, I said, start getting the new boys in. Sometimes you just need to freshen up the team a little bit. I feel like the team, we like for it to go get stale. And then once everybody's clocked us and then we can't maneuver, then he starts making changes. If we're beating Brighton by even like 2-0 on Sunday, put Ari in, get some new blood going, get something fresh going. Ari is fine. He's fine. It's unfortunate, the Merino injury, but you have Ari, use him. Helicopters are cool, says the Be Positive Brigade will be blaming AFTV if we don't win the league. Negative fans, never the board's fault. I've always said this, that the anger is always misplaced. I feel like some fans want to always blame content creators or negative fans or negative people on Twitter for the demise of the club, instead of realizing that if we just won things, that they would go away. Genuinely, not AFTV, because they've turned a corner. They really have. Like, they're not that negative group that they used to be. They will, but it just reflects the club. Like, if the club is in a positive place, the fans on the content creators are more positive. It reflects where the club is at. I don't think people are being, it just reflects where the club is at and where they are in regards to the trophies that they're supposed to be winning. Because people could say, like, you should be positive because we're in a good place, but we're not really in a good place unless we're winning trophies. We're in a better place than we used to be, but we're not in a successful place. So, it was never AFTV's fault that Arsenal were in a bad place. I just feel like they mimicked where the club was at. The club was on its knees. We looked terrible. We weren't winning trophies. We were nowhere near where we needed to be, so instead of focusing on the content creators and the Twitter people and all this kind of stuff, just focus on, the club and ask questions of the club. It never happens. It never, ever happens. They never focus on the club, ever. They always focus on us and try to make it seem like it's our fault. I don't kick a ball. I'm not on the pitch. I'm not coaching on the sideline. It could never be my fault that we're not winning the league. It could never be my fault. So, just, it's misplaced. It really, really is. And everybody will be more positive once we start winning things. So simple. It's so simple. The Arsenal Perspective says, Jess, are you live following the remaining hours of the transfer window? I mean, no, I have to go like soonish, so I can't stay on that long, to be honest. But I'm just trying to wait and see if any little bit comes out, any little thing. People are asking about, Neto. We have signed Neto. Neto is an Arsenal player now. So, yeah. So Neto is an Arsenal player. And so far, like, pretty much our window is, Raya becoming permanent, Setford, Nygaard, Neto on a loan, Calafiori, and Merino. So, yeah. But yeah. Terrence Tibb says Neto for a few months is not an issue. I'm actually okay with the Neto thing. It's just, if we hadn't spent so long trying to get Juan Garcia and pissing about with that on a player that we should have known whether or not they were going to accept something underneath the release clause, then we could have gotten somebody else that wasn't going to be cup tied, or we could have gotten Neto before he actually played in that game, because now he's not going to be able to play, so in a cup competition that he's meant to be played in, but it doesn't matter. Like, who cares about the Carabao Cup? We don't need to win trophies. Brandon says, we don't give a fuck about Neto. He's like 35-year-old keeper. That's not better than Ramsdale. Mode says, can we get Neto to change position as a forward? No. Foxy says, difficult game versus Brighton tomorrow. Merino could make the difference. Don't be funny. I know he's injured. We're basically going to play the same team we played against Aston Villa. So I would imagine, I don't think anything will change. He should start Calafiori at left back. We need to start getting the new players in, like our new player integrated as quickly as possible. There's no reason to keep messing about with Zinchenko or do Timber if you have to. You guys know it's not. I feel like Calafiori should be playing left back because he's left-footed. So, yeah. Let's see. Oh, something. Oh, there it is. So, yeah. Oh, I had like so many tabs open that I couldn't find you guys again. But yeah, we have a tricky game against Brighton, and God forbid we lose. You guys really are not going to want to be online because the negativity will ensue. But, but where do we go from here? No signings. What do we do? I don't know. We don't have internal solutions, so we've done that for the last 3 summers, saying that we have internal solutions up front, so what are the internal solutions now? What do we do now? Because right now you like literally have to hope that we can get Martinelli back in form. There is no, let's just, he can't continue on the way that he is. He's like, if he continues on the way that he is, he's like a nothing in the team. I know that sounds so harsh, but it's true. It's true. He's like a 0 because he doesn't look like scoring goals. So what do we do from here? Martinelli needs to get back into form. Jesus, he has to stay fit, but he can't, so, what are we meant to do? It's crazy. It's crazy. Doom and gloom. Yep, doom and gloom. The Arsenal perspective says, yes, that's a great point. Martinelli has to be like a new signing. Like it's that real. Like we have to hope. And the reason why it is so negative, you guys, is because we're trying to win trophies. Like if we're just trying to get into top 4 of Europe, it would not be that deep. It would not be that deep, but we're meant to be going toe to toe with City for a title. And, we haven't signed a forward. So we really need Martinelli to get back into form. I just don't know how they're going to make it happen. It's been a whole season in 2 games where he just doesn't look like anywhere near the player that he's supposed to be. Matthew says, Jess, 89 points and top scored plenty with Martinelli off form. I think people are being overly concerned. I don't, because this wasn't enough to win, and we didn't win any trophies last season. So if we had been able to win something and still, had Martinelli off form, then I would say, yeah, that's good enough, but it wasn't good enough for us to win anything. So, doesn't really mean anything. To be honest, I think we have every right to be concerned, especially when it comes down to Champions League, because people are only focusing on the Premier League. And Champions League is, as long as you're in it, you need to try to win it, because you don't know, we could go years without qualifying for it again. So every year that you're in it, you need to take it serious. And we were blunt in the knockout stages. So it's not just about even just the league, but 89 points, we're not even pushing City to 100. I don't, what if Trossard doesn't score as many goals as he did last season? What if Saka gets injured? So again, Martinelli can't be off form. Martinelli can't be off form. He has to be in form. If you want to think about it the most positive way that you possibly can, that's fine. Glass half full. Martinelli comes back into form. Jesus never gets another injury. Trossard scores so many goals. Martinelli goes back to his old form. Havertz scores 20 goals, and Saka stays fit, and he scores he gets 40 goal contributions. That is the best case scenario, But when's the last time Arsenal have gotten the best case scenario? You tell me. Yeah, I don't think anybody else is coming in. That's for sure. Let's see. Boy says Odegaard has to play out of his skin. Again, a player that's, because of our imbalance in midfield, because we're still going to be playing with the same Rice at left center mid, that means Odegaard has to drop deeper, which limits his chances to be closer to the box, where the season in which he scored those 15 goals, he wasn't playing deeper to make up for not having, another ball player in midfield. Because we're going to be playing with Rice, Odegaard, and Partey, Odegaard has to drop deeper, which limits his influence in creative positions. And so we shouldn't expect Odegaard to have 15 and 15 again. So again, everything has an equal and opposite reaction. So everybody if you want Odegaard to score them 15 goals again, then Merino needs to be fit, and Merino's not, so yeah, Odegaard is going to need to come up with lots of goals, So yeah, Foxy says, I noticed Brighton already sent Cozier Dewberry out on loan to Blackburn. I think we all knew this, like the amount of wingers that they were buying, they were never going to keep him. Basically what people are doing are picking off our academy players that have 1 year left or are going on a free. They take them, they send them out on a loan so that they can, sell them for more. Aston Villa did that with what is that kid's name? I forget what his name is, but the Lino Sousa, they've sent him out on loan. They'll get a fee for him, the fee that we should be getting. Same thing Chelsea did with Omari Hutchinson. It's going to be the same thing with Cozier Dewberry. Like it's a good plan, it's a really good plan. So yeah, Boy says we could have signed Matoma. If we were serious, we would have. We would have went for any attacker that's better than what we have now or on the same level. Yo-Yo says Cali Timber means Partey, Georgie won't play as much, double inverting either side of Rice. This is the plan. I would have loved to see. I wouldn't have been surprised if we would have done it against Brighton. Rice dropping back to the 6 and Merino in the 8, but Merino is now injured again. And Jesus is also injured. So Arteta doesn't even have the option of dropping Havertz in left 8. It's going to have to be the same composition that we've had. So the longer that Merino and Jesus are out, the more likely we are not to move to that system. So I see what you're saying, but that only works if you have another left 8 available. And right now we don't. So Terrence Tibbs says, I would play Calafiori instead of Martinelli. Martinelli, we have to persist with Martinelli. They need to make it like they have to, make Martinelli, they have to figure out a way to get him performing. There's no way that even with Trossard playing out of his skin, it's very risky to have a Martinelli that's out of form like this for the entire season. So they need to figure it out. They backed this horse, so they have to make sure that he wins the race. I think Martinelli is really good, when he's playing well. I actually saw somebody say that he needs to take less touches. And he's taking more touches than he was before, the season prior, the good season that he had. He was more of just finishing off moves, which was great. Now we're asking him to do more creating, and that's not his bag. So Arteta needs to figure out a way to allow him to do what he does best. And yeah, that's up to them to figure it out. World Boss says we lost out last season by 2 points. I'm not accepting players out of form being the reason we miss out again. The Arsenal perspective says, I'm more hoping that any other emotion that Martinelli will bang. Yo-Yo says, Martinelli is a net negative at this point. We really needed another option with pace. And that's the other thing, is that we also need Martinelli to come back into form, because he's our only fast forward. So without any option to run in behind, we're really limited in attack. So again, we backed ourselves into a corner. We have a player that is painfully out of form that we absolutely need to get back into form, because he's our only pace, because we didn't bring anybody in with pace, but we also brought in a midfielder that was meant to unlock him that's now injured. So we're kind of in a position where it's kind of like we've locked ourselves into this position. A lot of things would have been solved if we had just bought an attacker. Like, that was the way out. An attacker would have allowed for Merino, who's got injured, to not have to be the one way that we can unlock Martinelli. If we had just brought somebody in, then we'd have like almost like a backup plan or something to save us, but we backed ourselves into a corner here. So we really just need to we have to hold that. And it's up to Arteta to figure out a way to get Martinelli going, because he's the only pacey winger that we have. That's it. Josh says, I wonder if Merino was hurt when we signed him. No, he got hurt in training. Gabriel fell on top of him and busted his shoulder. So Boy says, Martinelli strikes me as the type of player that needs his left center mid partner to be his brains. I mean, yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think we figured that out, though. I think we fully figured that out, that Martinelli needs somebody like the brains to be near him, and he just needs to finish off moves, and that's it. But we're asking him to do something else, which is why we're constantly linked with other left center mids, because our left wingers. I think we're linked with other left wingers because Arteta doesn't necessarily want to build the team around Martinelli. He wants to build something different. I think he's moving away from the system that we were successful in 2022, 2023. And so we're moving away from it. But because we won't buy another attacker and we're not figuring out the midfield, it's like we keep having to go back to Martinelli. You can't move away from Martinelli if you still require him in your team. So, all we had to do was just buy an attacker. It was just very simple. Burmy says, just like last season, it will be a poor first half, and then hopefully we'll perform better in the second half. Can't afford to have a poor first half of the season because all of our hard away games are in the first half of the season. So really, we actually need to have a really good start. And I mean, we need to beat Brighton. If you don't beat Brighton, then it puts more pressure on the Spurs. Actually, you have to beat Spurs too. And the only game that we can afford not to win in is against City, away from home. So, we really don't have the wiggle room to be not good in the first half of the season. And we shouldn't be like this. There's no excuse for not being ready to go. PW says Martinelli would be gone if we had a center forward that had at the end of his crosses. KT was great, but there is no center forward for his crosses either. Martinelli's not a good crosser. I don't know. I don't think that's what you were saying, but from a creative standpoint, Martinelli just needs to be the finisher. And I don't know what we're trying to do now, but the left winger, in the way that we play now, it's like we want our left center mid to be the finisher instead of the left winger. And so the left winger needs to be more creative. And Martinelli is not that. He's not a good crosser. He can't find a pass. He doesn't have that in his locker. So Arteta needs to change it up. But the only way that we were going to be able to change it up is with Merino. Yo-Yo says, people early on spoke on Arteta's work with Sané and Sterling, and I was intrigued to see what he'd make of Martinelli. That Mudryk case made it clear that his days were numbered. Exactly. And you know what? I think maybe we could see if Arteta was bolder, which he's not, but if he was bolder, I felt like the only time in preseason where Martinelli actually looked good was against Man United, and I think he played with Nwaneri. I think the only other thing that he could do to get Martinelli going, even without Merino, is to play Nwaneri at left center mid, but it's risky and it's just not something that Arteta would do. But if he was a bolder manager, I think he'd do it, because you have to have, Nwaneri is a brain, like we're talking about now. He could actually thread those balls through to Martinelli. He could actually do the work that Martinelli can't do on that side. And we played like that in preseason a little bit, with Nwaneri and Odegaard, but he's never going to do that in the league. But again, if you're going to force Martinelli in and keep Trossard on the bench, then you cannot persist with Rice in the left center mid. You have to do something different. Otherwise, you need to play Trossard. So for me, like, that's the only other thing that we can do, that's the only other thing that we can do. I just don't think he's bold enough to do it. I just don't think he's bold enough to do it. Because I would not sacrifice the composition or the balance of my midfield just for the sake of it. Nico says, Jess, where would you rate our attack in the league? I would say 5th or 6th. Oh, it's not 1st or 2nd, that's for sure. And I don't even want to start thinking below that, because Chelsea's on paper is better than ours. As hard as that is to say, Chelsea's on paper in terms of the depth that they have. Maybe not the starting group, but the depth is better. So I would say we're lucky our defense is probably best in the league. Yo-Yo says Martinelli's best combinations came from Xhaka, Fabio. Neither are at the club, and Martinelli also needs to learn how to make off the ball movement. He's not, but the thing is Martinelli, I don't think he's going to become a different player in his essence. Like, I think that's the problem, is that a player, I know he's young, but this idea that players just turn into different players, they become better versions of what they already are. Martinelli is never going to be like Saka, ever. He's not going to ever develop the creativity. He's never going to develop that roundness to his game. The only thing he can do is become probably a better version of the pacey, direct winger that he already is. So we need to figure out ways to get him into positions to be a better version of that, because he's never going to, like, the things that he needs to be better at picking out these he's never going to do that. He's never going to do that. I think we're asking him to do things that don't suit him, and that is Arteta down. Like, that is Arteta down. Like, Arteta is so good for putting players in positions and making them do things that are outside of what they're good at, instead of just making them better at what they do. Asking Martinelli to do more Saka things is not helping, so I don't think Martinelli is ever going to develop the things that we're asking for. And that's why I'm saying, if Arteta is so hell-bent on having another Saka on the other side, then he needs to go buy that player and stop bullshitting, and if that player was just Nico Williams, then you need to figure out a way to get Martinelli going. Martinelli he wouldn't be a hindrance in if Martinelli played for Klopp, I think he'd be fine, because I think Klopp would just let him do what he does best, and he would set it up so that Martinelli just has to do what he does best. And when he does those things, he's so good, but we want him to be something different, and he's not going to be that. Like, there's just no way. Yo-Yo says Martinelli is a foreign player. He would be better suited modeling after Jamie Vardy. At this point, he's on track of being a poverty-stricken Rashford. He actually reminds me a lot of Rashford. Like, if you want something different, you need to get a different player, because you need to get him in the form and the confidence to do what he does best. And then he sparkles a little bit more. But yeah. Martinelli and it's not just a Martinelli thing. The club, Arteta needs to figure out a way to get this going. Like, Martinelli can only do so much. He's never going to become Saka. He's never going to become Saka. So yeah, New Music says Martinelli was on fire Emery days and early Arteta times. Something has changed. We've changed. We have changed. Like the fact that we're so like, it's like we can accept that we have moved beyond like the need for Jesus and Zinchenko to be our starters. We can see that our game has changed so much from that season to this season now, that everything that like the composition of the team, the combinations, the way that we play is so different than that first season when we challenged. So different, so different. And so we're comfortable saying that we've moved beyond Jesus and we've moved beyond Zinchenko. But I feel like there is a reluctancy to look at other players that we like more and ask those same questions. You know, I think the way that we play now is so different to the way that we played then. It doesn't even suit Martinelli anymore. And so it's tough to say that we've moved beyond him. I feel maybe not as strong as that, but we've at least moved to a place where what he does best no longer suits what we need in that position. And Arteta's too strict, or like he's not malleable enough or like flexible enough to change his tactics to make sure that Martinelli can still thrive. So yeah, Martinelli was good in the Emery days, and an Emery attack, you just have to create chaos. Emery is all about chaos, directness, carrying the ball, getting crosses into your attackers. He doesn't play positional play. So of course Martinelli was good then. He was also playing as a striker sometimes, so he thrived. Early Arteta, we were just bombing down the sides with Saka and Martinelli just playing more direct. First season that we challenged, Martinelli was just a striker in our system because Gabriel Jesus was a facilitator. Things have changed. Kai Havertz is not Jesus. The midfield is different. We don't have Xhaka. We have Rice there. The requirement for the left center mid is different now than it was back then. So either you change the system to suit Martinelli or you get a left winger. You don't keep the system the way that it is and not get a winger too, So yeah, but he's like the key to everything, because Jesus, I'm telling you right now, I like him. He's a good player. He's a good player, but him being good and being available is so much less important than Martinelli. Because quite literally, we've been doing without Jesus since December of 2022. So it's more about Martinelli than anything. He's the key to getting back to at least a dangerous looking attack. Because if he could get back up to form, he would start. Where I think if Jesus were to get up to form, he would still not start over Kai. So he's really the key to all of this. Otani says Martinelli can't play central, no chance, wide forward or inside forward, but 9 would be a complete waste. I wouldn't move him to the 9. I just feel like he needs to be more central. You don't have to be the 9 to be more central. Anton Dunn says Arteta is obsessed with tactics and not about using the players to their strengths. Imagine having Tomiyasu invert. That's ghastly behavior. Yeah, I don't want to say anything about that. Paul says, when the players put the Arsenal shirt on, we all should be behind them. If they try to win and play good, then let's be behind them. Nobody is not behind the players. Nobody is not behind the player. Being critical of a player in the form that they are in is not being behind them. I think after a year of Martinelli being a ghost of himself, you should be concerned about his form. So being concerned and criticizing him or the system and the way that it works together to hinder Martinelli is not being behind the players. Like, nobody's going to the games and throwing cups at them and cussing them out and saying no. Like, I really think that nuance is so important. Anytime you hear something that's not innately positive does not mean you're not backing the team or you're not behind them. When we play against Brighton, everybody is my favorite player, go, 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 whatever. This is a completely different conversation. Like, nobody's not behind the team. Yo-Yo says, people want to praise the likes of Martinelli and Jesus for their defending what happened to my club. I do think that we've whittled down Martinelli's his importance to the team down to him running around hard and stuff like that. I don't actually think him and Martinelli defensively and Trossard defensively, to me, could never be the difference between me choosing between the two. Because we're actually going to be at a point now where we have a left back that is defensively capable. So that shouldn't even be in our conversation anymore. All of our players work hard off of the ball. It's a prerequisite for the club. And so, yeah, hard work is important, and we clap, clap, clap when everybody wins their duels and stuff like that. But that is so minute in the conversation of whether or not he should be starting. And so, yeah, Martinelli getting back to help Zinchenko. Trossard does too. Trossard does it as well. So what are we talking about? Jordan says, if we don't win the league this season, it's curtains for this project. Burmy says, I doubt we're signing anyone else. It took weeks to resolve Calafiori and Merino. And with all the supposed links to forwards and wingers, we have not heard about a concrete initial offer. We haven't been linked to anybody since Sesko. The Nico Williams thing never really came to fruition. We genuinely have not been linked to a winger or an attacker seriously since Sesko. And we had to have known that there was a good possibility of him signing a new deal. So we didn't actually care about getting an attacker. It wasn't a priority. It was just if we can get it, maybe. Put it this way, our attack as of right now, this minute, is not set the Champions League. It's not going to set the Champions League alight, not without Jesus and Martinelli at least getting to their top level of form. At their top level of form, if they played anything like they did in 2022, 2023, we wouldn't be as concerned. There would still be concerns, but it wouldn't be anywhere near what it is now. I think just seeing them be basically non-factors for a whole season makes it scary, so yeah. Martinelli has similar physical attributes like Cristiano Ronaldo, but if he doesn't have the brain and the vision of Ronaldo, his pace and movement was top quality. I mean, putting Martinelli and Cristiano Ronaldo in the same sentence is kind of wild, isn't it? Martinelli is a direct, pacey, winger. That is his thing. He's an inside forward, not even really a true winger. And his best qualities come out when he's asked to do as little as possible, arrive in the box and put the ball in the back of the net. That's when he's his most confident. When you start asking him to do other things, he's not as good, So I just think we need to get back to basics and figure out a way to get him on track. Jordan says, how is it Brighton have 3 players for each position and we have, I don't know, we don't care about having a deep attack. We care about having a deep defense. That's the only thing I could really think of. Maybe they're scared because of what happened with Willian. I really don't know, but they're just way too comfortable with our attacking options as is. They never want to be safe, rather be safe than sorry. They want to, play with destiny. I'm just yo. But yeah, I'm hoping that at the very least we can get our players back in form, because that's kind of all we have left. Yeah, that's kind of all we have left is getting players back in form, like a new signing, like Martinelli, like a new signing, Jesus, like a new signing, Timber, like a new signing, Winery, like a new signing. Patman says Arteta is using Martinelli as a wide winger rather than an inside forward for his inverted fullback. I mean, get Calafiori and maybe that will help. I'm just thinking there has to be a shakeup. We can't continue to do the same things that we've been doing. Money Time says, you guys are aware that we've only lost or drawn 2 games in the league in this calendar year, right? Money, that doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because we've been the best team in the league since Christmas. Beginning of last season, we lost the league. We haven't won a trophy, so I just feel like bringing up nonsense. We haven't lost a game since the beginning of 2024. Mind you, when we did lose a game, they told us that we're going to go after Isak and Michael Olise. and we've gotten down to the final week and done nothing, or the final day. So it doesn't matter. But on that, I think I'm going to go ahead and go. I don't think, we're not constructive now, and so I'm happy for this to end. Bex, I'm glad that the window is done now, because now we can just focus on results. From here on out, it's all about winning trophies. That's all it's about now. Not about how many points we get, going toe to toe, how many goals we score, how many, our defense not giving away so many chances. It's not about what we did last season. It's about winning trophies. That's where we're at now. And so hopefully what we have is enough to get us over the line. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. And the next time you guys will see me is for the watch along, and then for player ratings immediately following. Love you guys. Bye. Hold on. Bex, come here. I don't know why I can't ever just end stream from here.